I've made a lot of water pump videos, but it's a very popular subject. I've showed this stuff before, but this is just another comparison. These are not 100% identical. You know, we have a revised part here. We got a sticker here with a part number on it. First of all, they're the exact same part number, but this one ends in a P and this one ends in a CO. So they keep on revising and revising. Eventually they put an aluminum face pump on here. But this particular pump has a large date on it. It says 2009 on the back. This one, there's no date right here. A lot of times when you're looking at parts, it helps you determine, you know, how old something is or if something needs replaced, because we're not all made of money. I've showed this before. This might be difficult to get on camera, but most of the original Audi parts have a little tiny date stamp, if not all the Audi parts. I mean, pretty much anything significant enough is going to have a date stamp. And in the middle there, it says 14, and the arrow is pointing at 7. So this was 2014 in the 7th month. This one has one way back in here. And this one is 09, and it says it's in the 10th month. And this says 11 for some reason. They were just a hair off on their dates. They're 1 month off on their dates, it looks like. I don't know. But close enough. Anyway, that's what that's supposed to mean. What I really wanted to show you about these pumps is this being a 2009. Do you see how there's some significant bowing? The plastic is about ready to break apart. See, this one's a complete rectangle. It's perfect. It's still completely straight. There's no signs of any damage or bowing, nothing. This one, the gasket was about to fall out, and if you look really close, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this in the camera either. Let me get some more light here. Let me just take a screwdriver and pop it out, because I think I'll be able to. I got something better than a screwdriver. I got a pair of Nipex pliers. So I'm just gonna take it right here and see how these pieces they were just ready to crumble out anyway, all by themselves. But complete junk. Those pieces were already, like I said, cracked and just waiting for them to fall out of place. And then, boom, water pump leak. Because all it takes is for this gasket to fall in a little bit, and it's no longer in its housing area. It'll fall down a little bit, and then the pressurized coolant escapes. So I still might find a use for this one in the future because it's absolutely perfect. But you know, I prefer to put new water pumps on. This video is really showing the comparison on a Chinese pump again. I've already shown you a Chinese pump versus a quality aluminum Rhine pump. So this is what it looks like when you get your Chinese pump. So like I say, I need to say this all the time. Look, people are gonna buy the Chinese stuff whether I show it or not. So I might as well be the person to show and talk about it and explain. You're always gonna get a better product when you buy something with a name brand. I don't care if it's OEM. Like I trust OEM parts more than aftermarket parts. But this, for instance, doesn't even have a brand. They're not even happy enough with this pump to put a name on it. It's unbranded. That's what I mean about a name brand part, and you need to buy it from a reputable source. So look, this is the box that came in. No, nothing. It has a little sticker right here that says made in China. Made in China. right? So that's what this comes in. Don't make a mistake by buying a water pump. It's just the impeller, all right? You can buy a water pump and you might get just this part. But let me explain something to you. This part right here costs about $80. Now you can get these as cheap as about $25, but that's probably also cheap knockoff China stuff. This is a very quality Beck Arnley part. It's a good brand. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take, so hopefully they know how to use casting procedures and they got the metal good enough to where it's not gonna fall apart. So hopefully the casting is legit, but I wouldn't trust this pump. We're gonna take this pump off and compare it. So I'm just gonna do what no man has ever done before. Take apart a brand new Chinese water pump. And we're gonna pop the face off of it and compare them. There we are. So that's what the housing looks like, right? Now let's compare these pumps. First this side here. So everything here looks pretty legit. Spin it over here. So these pump faces, I mean, to the untrained eye, everything looks pretty legit here as well. Does it feel any different? This one feels just kind of stiff. It doesn't really, it's hard to even feel if there's a legit good bearing in there. I mean, this one feels stiff too, but it feels more fluid. It's hard to explain. This one definitely feels stiffer. It almost feels like this one could definitely, 100%, it's not in my brain. This feels better, and this feels just sticky. There's just a sticky feeling to it. Now, it looks like it was put together in two pieces, this impeller. I'm looking at the plastic, and this just looks like cheap plastic, and this looks like, it's hard to explain this as well. It's just high end. It's like carbon composite. It's versus like cheap toy. So of course you get what you pay for. Let's take a look at this gasket even. So this gasket has a little bulbous deal over here. It doesn't really look like it's, see how it's kind of protruding out of its spot right there and it's kind of pushed in. This gasket is uniform all the way around and looks very nice. Now, one more thing to mention. When you get the cheap Chinese water pump, you're gonna get a cheap knockoff coolant temp sensor. You see the OEM temp sensor has, you know, the part number and Audi stamp and all this kind of stuff, VW emblem. It also feels a little bit more girthy. It feels like this one has a little bit more weight to it. Probably because this probably isn't even actually metal. This is probably just like spray paint over plastic. This is probably actually copper. That was a joke. But this is probably actually copper. What I would do with this is don't use it. Whatever you're thinking, don't use it. You're much better off to put the old 10-year-old sensor back in. I've never seen one of these fail yet. Before you put it back in, it's probably a good idea to take a 3M pad or a cleaning pad or something and just clean up the copper, because in my brain it makes me think that you're going to get a better reading if you clean it up and make it shiny again. So that's what you do with that. Put that back in, the original one. Now let's bolt this pump back up. We're just going to take the $80 pump face and we're going to put it on the $60 complete pump. Like, this thing is $60 shipped. That's crazy. And how does this go? Is it even going to work? It goes like this. So if you do it this way, you might actually save about $40, but you still have a cheap Chinese thermostat. Now, you could swap out your thermostat as well. You could put your old one back in, and then you could spend your money just on this housing. But just spend the extra $40 and get yourself a Rhine water pump or a Graf pump. So far, I haven't seen anything wrong with these aluminum pumps. So you don't just hammer down any one of the bolts. You get them all started like that, and on this one I'm gonna take it down to 1. We need to get better at using our power tools, right? Because if we're gonna use them, we need to learn how to set them and all that kind of stuff. All right, I torqued them all down at level 1 on my impact. Now we're gonna follow that back up with a hand tool. Nothing crazy, I just got a little T30, just a little mini ratchet, and then I'm just barely following it up as well. Just see, that bit is a little bit ate up. It's a quality bit too, though. It's a Matco bit, but maybe it's the cheap Chinese bolts, because I'm reusing the Chinese bolts. Maybe they're just so crappy that the tolerances are all whack in the bolt heads as well. All right, so that's good enough. They're all definitely torqued all the way around. Now I've got a Chinese water pump with a pump face that costs more than the entire thing. And I've got an extra pump face if I want it. But you know what I'm gonna do with this? I'm never gonna use it. Nope, I'm gonna throw it away. I will use this though. I'll run this. But basically I just made this for the video. I'll spend the extra $40 just to buy the Rhine part, right? That way I don't have to fool with the thermostat or nothing. So if you think the video was a waste, give me a thumbs down. If not, hit the subscribe button. I'm not done yet. I wish I could find it. I just had it. But one thing I want to mention is the O-ring for this coolant temp sensor. The one that you take off your old water pump, it's most likely going to be expanded. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop this one out and we'll take a look at this one. This is how you take this out, by the way. If you don't want to possibly take a risk of damaging this clip, because this clip could be, you know, brittle as well, and you might need to reuse it if you don't have a new clip in your little packet. I'm just being careful with it, but I show in a different video how to take a pick and get it loose. But sometimes it doesn't have enough flexibility in it to do like that. So if we pop this thing out and then we pull the O-ring out, this one's probably, yep, this one's gonna make a liar out of me. This one's in good shape. So I wouldn't ever suggest reusing this stuff, but in this case, it still fits. Now, if it's a little bit loose on here and it doesn't fit on there, it's done. You can't reuse the O-ring. Like I say, don't use O-rings anyway. Put brand new everything on everything, right? I'm just telling you. So, do what you want to do. I'm just gonna tell you though. So, furthermore, like I said, this is still a viable pump option. I can put this on something, right? I don't throw away perfectly good parts, even though there's better parts. I don't need to keep on explaining myself either. But this is completely junk. I showed you on camera how I've just popped this out like nothing. Let's take this thermostat out, and this is how much I believe in OEM parts rather than Chinese parts. We're not only gonna look at it, we're gonna replace it. So this is the thermostat that comes out. We're gonna turn our torque back up. Now, what kind of gasket situation do we have on here? First off, before I pull it out, let's just take this off. I don't trust those O-rings either. We don't need those. The ones inside the hoses are usually good enough. I haven't needed to replace but one of those in all my career. Even down to this, look at how weird this is. I guess it's the same for the OEM pump, all right? So, but we got one T30 and one Allen bolt. So I guess, like I say, I was gonna dog on the Chinese, but the OEM uses the same weird setup. Now, we pop this off and their pump outlet has a little O-ring in it. But take a look at that O-ring. Can you see the little sliver missing right there? I mean, even the O-ring, look at how there's, can you see that in the camera? That O-ring is already, look at this. It's already cut. Did it happen whenever it was installed, or did it happen whenever I just now took it loose? That is legit a cut O-ring, junk. I don't think I'm gonna be able to replace this thermostat. It's probably a different design. So that's what it looks like. If I try to pull this one out, gotta be careful with pulling on this part right here, because that's what it uses. Completely different. Will it fit? It looks like it fits. Let's take another look at it real quick. I mean, those thermostats are just completely different. Look at the bleeder screw on this one. Or that's just for the air to get through. That one's like completely solid. I don't know. It's like a check ball for that bleeder screw. That's really interesting. I mean, the quality of that thermostat is just far superior. I can just tell by looking at it. I hope this fits. In here, there's a little ledge for the thermostat to sit on, and here there's not. I think it's gonna work. I'm gonna run it and try. Just like that. And then I think I'm gonna put a little bit of silicone on this bad O-ring. I just don't trust this O-ring. So now I'm gonna make sure that everything's clear away from the edge. All right, now I'm gonna pop it back in. And if you'll notice, there's a spot for the original thermostat down here at the bottom. Let's take a look at another outlet. On this one, there's no spot for the thermostat, so hopefully it's fine. That's a tight fit. That doesn't... Okay. It won't work. There's no putting the original Audi thermostat back in the aluminum pump, so I have to trust the Chinese thermostat. And that fits. See what I was talking about with, and I did that on purpose. Before I just went and did that, I was contemplating with myself if I should grab that tool like I was explaining earlier. But that's just a perfect example of how you can use power tools and the aluminum, the threads can just strip right out on you. Those are the threads that used to be in the water pump. So I can still fix this, but I'll have to fix it with the proper screw now. So this screw is from the PVC breather assembly, the oil separator. And we're no longer using that one. We're gonna toss this one in, and I'm gonna take my torque back to 1. I got it in at stage 1. And now I'm gonna follow it back up with the hand tool. And I got it tight with the hand tool. So I went just slightly longer of a bolt rather. And that's just a perfect example of how, if you're careless with your power tools, you can turn your things into a bad time, especially when it's Chinese aluminum. So if you learned something, hit the subscribe button.